We've seen Mel Gibson in everything from Shakespeare to slapstick, but never quite like this. Never this candid about his failings, his addictions, and the deep depression that drove him close to suicide. Never this passionate about his faith, his family, and that movie you've heard so much about. His biblical epic, The Passion of the Christ. It's violent, it's shocking, it sparked a furious debate around the world. And as Diane Sawyer reports, it's also a very personal project, a magnificent obsession that, in a way, helped save Mel Gibson.
Set. Jesus stumbles into this business here.
This is it. Mel Gibson's film about the passion, the suffering of Jesus.
Move this roof and keep it up on that level.
From the arrest and the trial, up the hill to the crucifixion. 12 hours, Gibson says, are the beating heart of his Catholic faith.
He was beaten for our iniquities. He was wounded for our transgressions. And by his wounds, we're healed. That's the point of the film. It's not about pointing the fingers. It's not about playing the blame game. It's about faith, hope, love, and forgiveness. It's a reality for me. I believe that. I have to, so I can hope. So I can live.
And Mr. Gibson over here to your left.
Not the kind of thing you often hear from one of the reigning princes of Hollywood, where Mel Gibson made his millions being funny and a fighter, braveheart, and heartthrob.
You don't have to sort of put the grab on him so much.
But he says this is the movie he was compelled to make.
You said at one point that a big dark force didn't want us to make this film.
Sure.
What was the force?
What was the force? It's the thing you can't see. See, I'm a believer, by the way. So if you believe that there are big realms of good and evil, and they're slugging it out.
What does the evil side want?
Oh, it wants you. It wants you. People are capable of horrors, of atrocities. We're also capable of wonderful things, of good things. And we have the choice. What do we choose, you know? And often, many of us, at different times, choose both things.
Which brings us to another story you can, in a sense, also see in the shadows on the screen. Gibson says the seed of this film was planted 13 years ago in his personal struggle with self-destruction and despair.
Let's face it, I've been to the pinnacle of what secular utopia has to offer, right? It's just this kind of everything. I've got money, fame, this, that, the other, you know, and it's all been like here you go, like that. And it's like, okay. And when I was younger, I got my proboscis out and I dipped it into the font and sucked it up, all right? It didn't matter. There wasn't enough. It wasn't good enough. It's not good enough. It leaves you empty. The more you eat, the emptier you get.
How bad did it get?
Oh, you know, pretty bad. I think everybody in their life gets to a point where that happens, I think, where they get to the moment of truth and they go, well, what is this all about? Am I going to jump? Am I going to go on? I don't want to do either. I don't want to live. I don't want to die. You ask yourself all those Hamlet questions, and eventually you just have to say, I'm not good enough to figure this out. I don't know. I just don't know. Help! If there's anything out there, help, you know. And if you're lucky, you'll recognize the signs of that help.
He says 13 years ago, the man on all those magazine covers was, in fact, drowning.
I would get addicted to anything at all, okay?
Was it alcohol?
Yeah, mostly. It was, yeah. Look, don't I look like a rummy? No?
Drugs?
Drugs, booze, anything. You name it. Coffee, cigarettes, anything, all right? I'm just one of these guys who is like that. That's my flaw.
But you talked about the fact that you went on benders, got into fights, was hell to live with. And they said 5 pints before work?
5 pints of oil, yeah. Yeah.
Beer.
No, it was just to, you know, keep the throat lubricated, you know. Sometimes I used to drive inebriated. I mean, this is the height of careless stupidity. And when you think about that kind of insanity, and that I look back at that now and I go, what was I thinking? I was a wild boy. And we grew up in the 60s and 70s and, you know, wild times.
Just All kinds of carrying on.
What flaws shall I expose to the world here? Yeah, it's, you know, done a lot of things I'm not proud of. Like to hear another one?
You got my attention.
Yeah. Tell me another one. True Confessions on national television. Okay. Oh, gosh. Let me see. Ooh. Here's a beauty. No, I don't want to do this. This is horrible. This is awful. Yeah. I'm really a good guy. I mean, the real medal goes to my wife, who's a wonderful woman, you know.
What did she do?
What did she do? She hoped. For years.
Robin, his wife of 24 years and mother to his 7 children.
She's the best friend I have ever had. She's just great and would be there completely 100%, 110%. And to put up with me, that's already a tall order. So, hey, I'll spend the rest of my life giving her medals, more precious than jewels.
But Gibson says several times he had tried to turn his life around but kept failing and was brought to the brink of suicidal despair.
You know, I checked into a few places and, you know, sorted myself out. I didn't make a big noise about it.
You thought of jumping out a window?
I really did, yeah. I was looking down thinking, man, this is just easier this way. I don't know, you have to be mad. You have to be insane to despair in that way. But that is the height of spiritual bankruptcy. There's nothing left. But wow, what a waste. And that people do that is so sad. Whenever I hear suicide, I just want to die, you know. I want to cry. And it's because there's something better if they can just hang on a little longer, you know. It's awful. So, anyway. Oh, is this the crying segment? Wait a minute. Wait.
Did someone say something?
I'm sorry.
Did someone say something to you? Or you said it to yourself?
I said it to myself at this point. But that was after years of other people saying, hey, you know, bud, you got a problem. I think I just hit my knees. I just said, help. You know? And then I began to meditate on it, you know. And that's in the gospel, you know. I read all those again. I remember reading bits of them when I was younger. Pain is the precursor to change, which is great. That's the good news.
As Gibson's reborn spirituality led him to spend his own money making a movie about crucifixion, and not only that, in Aramaic and Latin with subtitles, what was the reaction in Hollywood? Well, first of all, that it was an anti-date movie, not exactly a career move.
How many people tried to talk you out of doing this film?
Oh, man. Everybody.
He laughs at his pal Jack Nicholson.
Went up and Jack was wearing this lime green sort of stripy shirt. And there's a little more of him than there used to be. And he's choking down an ice cream cone. And I went up to him and said, hey, Jack, how you doing? He said, how you doing, kid? Like that. Yeah. Good, good. He says, how's Jesus treating you?
Anybody almost change your mind?
No, not really. And now it's too late. I mean, I might as well just push the arrow through.
But almost from the beginning, Gibson's statements fueled controversy, like last summer, when he seemed to imply that the Holy Ghost had given him the one true version of the story.
You said the Holy Ghost was working through me.
I've received a lot of ridicule for that statement. I think that the Holy Ghost is real. I believe that he's looking favorably on this film. And he wanted to help. I could always use a little help.
Do you believe God wrote this film?
Wow. God ordains everything. God made my bed, you know. It's, you know, it gets into semantical kind of like questions like my kids ask me, did God make the car? You know, nothing happens by chance.
I think it's one of the things that worries and concerns some of the critics, that this is presented as truth. But if God ordained it, you're saying this is the version.
No, not at all. Not at all. It really is my vision. I'm not taking myself out of the equation here. I'm a proud bugger. I did this. But I did it with God's help. I mean, this is my version of what happened, according to the Gospels and what I wanted to show, the aspects of it I wanted to show.
Matera, Italy, the actor Jim Caviezel not only endured the freezing cold, his shoulder was dislocated in one scene and his skin accidentally flayed for real in another. All the time, he was playing the Jesus Gibson envisioned, not like the ones he'd seen before.
Bad hair, he's usually fairly effete and not a powerful presence, which clearly he must have been. It's very violent, and if you don't like it, don't go. You know?
Why so much of it?
I wanted it to be shocking, and I also wanted it to be extreme. I wanted it to push the viewer over the edge, and it does that. I think it pushes one over the edge so that they see the enormity of that sacrifice, to see that someone could endure that and still come back with love and forgiveness, even through extreme pain and suffering and ridicule.
What did the Pope think of your film?
Well, apparently he said it is as it was. And then apparently he didn't. And then apparently he did again. And then, you know, went back and forth. I don't know.
The apparent Vatican flip-flop is just one of a series of things making the director feel under siege.
I think as soon as they started filming, that beacon of journalistic integrity, the New York Times, was, you know, dispatched someone to go down there and take advantage of my father, even before I could finish filming. So it's a thing to try and drive a wedge in between a man's own flesh and blood. That's my father, okay? I love him. And if they're gonna try and drive a wedge in there, it ain't gonna happen.
Gibson's father, Hutton Gibson, age 85, who has written books and a newsletter with some decidedly provocative terms of phrase. He has called the Pope Garrulus Carolus the Koran kisser. And in that New York Times Magazine interview, he seemed to be questioning the scope of the Holocaust, skeptical that 6 million Jews had died. So what does Gibson think?
Do I believe that there were concentration camps where defenseless and innocent Jews died cruelly under the Nazi regime? Of course I do, absolutely. It was an atrocity of monumental proportion.
And you believe there were millions, 6 million,
Sure.
millions? I think people wondered if your father's views were your views on this.
Their whole agenda here, my detractors, is to drive a wedge between me and my father. And it's not going to happen. I love him. He's my father.
And you will not speak publicly about him
I'm
beyond
tight
that.
with him. He's my father. Gotta leave it alone, Diane. Gotta leave it alone.
That's a wrap!
There are some signs that The Passion of the Christ might even turn out to be a hit movie, producing the joke out in Hollywood that now everyone will rush to make the sequel.
25 million or 40 million of your own money on it?
Gee, somewhere between there. I don't know, 30, probably. Yeah.
Were you to have that much of your own money in it?
No. I was doing all right on 28 bucks a week as a garbage man, you know, 28 bucks a week and all you can eat. It was fine, you know. It's fine, it doesn't matter, stuff like that. I've never worried about that, ever, ever, ever.
But what about Mel Gibson's Superstar, the box office lethal weapon?
Hey, you want to see crazy? I'll tell you.
Can you go back to making those films after this?
You know, I'm kind of, I don't know. I don't feel like I want to. I don't feel like I want to get in front of a camera anymore. I like getting, you know, just being a slob behind a camera and watching other people look good. You know, I might not hurry back. I might go somewhere no one can find me. You know where that is? You know where's the place that no one can find you? I was thinking of pitching my tent right next to the weapons of mass destruction. Then no one would find me.